Ooh, this guy's studying for the CELPIP exam, and he wants to do some reading practice. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to do some reading practice. We're going to look at an article together, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay? Hey, if you like getting practice like this for the CELPIP, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel right down there. Okay, so I think one of the best ways to practice for the reading section is to read about controversial issues on Wikipedia or other websites. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to read about a controversial issue. I think if you do this, it's really going to help you improve in reading for information and reading for viewpoints. And a lot of people really struggle, especially in reading for viewpoints, okay? So this article is about GMOs. What's a GMO? A GMO is a genetically modified organism, okay? It's a sort of a controversial topic, at least in our culture. I'm not sure about your culture, okay? So we're going to read this Wikipedia article. We're going to read the first part here, and then you can see the table of contents. Now, this is a very long article. That's why it has a table of contents. You can see all those different parts of the issue. We're going to do this and point 5 down there called controversy. Okay, so if you want to read this full article on your own, you can just search on Google for GMO Wikipedia, and you're going to find this article. Okay, so we're going to start reading this, and then we're going to read the part on the controversy. Okay, so here we go. A genetically modified organism, GMO, is any organism whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques, i.e., a genetically engineered organism. GMOs are used to produce many medications and genetically modified foods and are widely used in scientific research and the production of other goods. Okay, the term GMO is very close to the technical legal term living modified organism, defined in the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, which regulates international trade in living GMOs, specifically any living organism that possesses a novel combination of genetic material obtained through the use of modern biotechnology. A more specifically defined type of GMO is a transgenic organism. This is an organism whose genetic makeup has been altered by the addition of genetic material from an unrelated organism. This should not be confused with the more general way in which GMO is used to classify genetically altered organisms, as typically GMOs are organisms whose genetic makeup has been altered without the addition of genetic material from an unrelated organism. The first genetically modified mouse was created in 1974, and the first plant was produced in 1983. There is controversy over GMOs, especially with regard to their use in producing food. The dispute involves buyers, biotechnology companies, governmental regulators, non-governmental organizations, and scientists. The key areas of controversy related to GMO food are whether GM food should be labeled, the role of government regulators, the effect of GM crops on health and the environment, the effect on pesticide resistance, the impact of GMO crops, I keep saying GMO, okay, it means the same thing, GM crops for farmers, and the role of GM crops in feeding the world population. In 2014, sales of products that had been labeled as non-GMO grew 30% to 1.1 billion. Okay, there is a scientific consensus that currently available food derived from GM crops poses no greater risk to human health than conventional food, but that each GM food needs to be tested on a case-by-case basis before introduction. Nonetheless, members of the public are much less likely than scientists to perceive GM foods as safe. The legal and regulatory status of GM foods varies by country, with some nations banning or restricting them, and others permitting them with widely differing degrees of regulation. Okay. No reports of ill effects have been proven in the human population from ingesting GM food. Although labeling of GMO products in the marketplace is required in many countries, it is not required in the United States, and no distinction between marketed GMO and non-GMO foods is recognized by the US FDA. In a May 2014 article in The Economist, it was argued that while GM foods could potentially help feed 842 million malnourished people globally, laws such as the one passed in Vermont to require labeling of foods containing genetically modified ingredients could have the unintended consequence of interrupting the process of spreading GM technologies to impoverished countries that suffer with food security problems. The Organic Consumers Association and the Union of Concerned Scientists and Greenpeace stated that risks have not been adequately identified and managed, and they have questioned the objectivity of regulatory authorities. Some health groups say there are unanswered questions regarding the potential long-term impact on human health from food derived from GMOs, and propose mandatory labeling or a moratorium on such products. Concerns include contamination of the non-genetically modified food supply, effects of GMOs on the environment and nature, the rigor of the regulatory process, and consolidation of control of the food supply in companies that make and sell GMOs, or concerns over the use of herbicides with glyphosate. Okay, so that's it for the article. Did you understand some of it? If you didn't understand some of the big words, don't worry about it. Let's just try to answer these questions, okay? In regard to GMO food, scientists disagree on its safety. Consumers are boycotting it. Its legal status varies by country. It is being used to feed mice. Which one do you think is the right answer? Well, what does this word here mean? Boycotting. Boycotting. To boycott something means to not buy a company's products because you don't like something the company is doing. Okay, or boycott it, you can boycott a whole industry. Let's say in this case, you're boycotting GMO foods. GMOs, it's not a company, but you're boycotting the whole idea of it. It means you don't like it, you're not going to buy GMO foods. Well, the article didn't say anything about that, about consumers boycotting it. What about this one? Scientists disagree on its safety. Disagree. Do scientists disagree on its safety? Well, what did the article say? It said, there is a scientific consensus that currently available food derived from GM crops poses no greater risk to health than conventional food. Okay, so the word consensus, do you know what that means? Consensus means there's a general agreement. Okay, so I guess scientists generally agree that GMO food is safe. Now, what does conventional mean? Conventional means normal or traditional food. So they're saying that GMO crops produce no greater health risks than normal conventional food. Okay, so the right answer is this one. Its legal status varies by country. Okay, because that's what it said. Remember, it said that some countries have banned GMO foods altogether. Some countries allow it, and they have varying degrees of, regulation for it. Okay, we know it's not this answer. It is being used to feed mice. Okay, the article didn't say anything about GMO food being used to feed mice. Okay, so the answer is this one, C. Its legal status varies by country. Okay, let's go to the next one. Some health groups are concerned about the impact GMO foods have on the water supply. Are concerned about the long-term impact GMO foods have on health. Believe large organizations are bribing the government. Okay, which one did the article say? Well, it didn't say anything about the water supply, did it? Didn't say that they were concerned about that. It didn't say that they think large organizations are bribing the government, although that might be happening. We don't know. But the article didn't say anything about that, okay? So this is the right answer, okay? Some health groups are concerned about the long-term impact GMO foods have on health. Okay, so let's go to this one. Some health groups have proposed removing GMO from the label, halting the sale of GMO foods, easing the regulatory process, substituting pesticides with glyphosate. Okay, which one do you think it is? Now, to answer this one, we have to know what some of the words mean. Okay, well, do these health groups want to remove GMO from the label? No, they don't want to remove GMO. They want to add it to the label. They want to make it mandatory to say this is a GMO food, right? So that average people know when they're shopping what is a GMO food and what isn't. Okay, so they want to add GMO. So this is not the right answer. Now, easing. Easing means to make easier. Do they want to ease the regulatory process? Do they want to make it easier? No, it didn't say that. They're concerned that the regulatory process is not good enough. It's not thorough enough. Okay, they want to make sure that the regulatory process is working well in regard to this GMO issue. They don't want companies to be able to just do whatever they want, right? So they want regulatory institutions, regulatory bodies to be in place to make sure that this is okay. All right, so this is not the right answer. Substituting pesticides with glyphosate. Okay, it didn't say anything about that. So even though that might sound like a fancy answer, it's not. On the exam, you might see some answers that have big words and they might look really official. If you don't understand them, it's probably not the correct answer. Just trust your gut. Okay, trust your feelings. So what about this one? Halting the sale of GMO foods. What does halting mean? Halting means stopping. Do some health groups want to stop, or did they propose stopping the sale of GMO foods? Yeah, look at this. Some health groups say there are unanswered questions regarding the potential long-term impact on human health from food derived from GMOs and propose mandatory labeling. Mandatory means they have to do it, mandatory labeling, or a moratorium on such products. What does moratorium mean? Moratorium means stopping something, okay? Just like halting. So the correct answer is halting the sale of GMO foods. Okay, that's what they're proposing. Okay, foods labeled non-GMO are more expensive to buy, are more costly to produce, are seeing a rise in demand, are experiencing a decline in sales. Which one of these is right? Foods labeled non-GMO are seeing a rise in demand. Remember, the article said in 2014, foods labeled non-GMO have risen, or the sales have risen by 30%, I think it said, right? So we can assume that that these foods are rising in demand. I mean, it didn't say anything about 2018, but we can assume that if it's growing then, I mean, the article just gave us the feeling that these foods are not, like foods labeled non-GMO, are increasing in demand, right? But hey, I want to know, are GMO foods allowed in your country? I'm sort of interested in this topic. I think it's a very important issue. And there's definitely two sides to this controversy. Some people say, yes, we should have GMO food because it's more resistant to, bugs and stuff, and it can feed all these people, poor people in Africa, right? But then the other side says, no, this is really bad. Tampering means sort of changing our foods to make them genetically modified. That's not good. It has a really negative effect on our long-term health. So what do you think? And I want to know, how does your country view this issue? Let me know down there in the comments, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.